670 horsepower, an 8,600 RPM redline. Headlines called it the American supercar slayer. The Corvette Z06 was not just meant to lead Chevy's future. It was supposed to embarrass Europe's best. But as owners chased lap records, something unexpected surfaced: limp modes, rising temperatures, and a community on fire with doubt. How did the Z06 go from halo to headache, and what really happened behind the hype? Aluminum, magnesium, and carbon fiber, these are the building blocks of a machine engineered to shatter expectations. At its heart sits the LT6, a 5.5-liter naturally aspirated V8 that rewrites the rulebook for American performance. This is not a throwback to muscle car thunder. The LT6 is a study in speed, precision, and ambition. Its flat-plane crankshaft, a design more common in European exotics, lets the pistons fire in a rapid, even rhythm. That means less rotational mass, quicker revs, and a banshee wail that climbs all the way to 8,600 revolutions per minute. No production V8 in history has spun this high. The numbers are staggering: 670 horsepower at 8,400 revolutions per minute, 460 pound-feet of torque, and a power band that stays alive from the first jab of the throttle to the last stretch of the tachometer. Every detail of the LT6 is shaped by the pursuit of speed. Over square cylinder dimensions, 104.3mm bore, and 80mm stroke keep piston speeds in check even as the revs skyrocket. Dual 87mm throttle bodies feed a pair of 5.5-liter intake plenums, each tuned to breathe with the engine's demand. Titanium intake valves and connecting rods, sodium-filled exhaust valves, and mechanical lifters were all chosen for strength at speed and to shed precious weight. The dry sump oiling system scavenges from 6 separate bays, holding 10 quarts of 5W50 synthetic, to keep the engine alive under lateral G-forces that would starve lesser designs. The result is a V8 that does not just make power, but delivers it with a ferocity and smoothness that feels almost alien for an American badge. The sound is sharp and urgent, echoing the C8R endurance racers that inspired its development. Chevrolet's engineers did not stop at the engine. The entire C8 platform, introduced in 2020, was built around a mid-engine layout. That is 40 to 60 front-to-rear weight distribution, a seismic shift from every Corvette before it. With the engine now behind the driver, weight transfers to the rear tires under acceleration, unlocking traction that launches the Z06 from 0 to 60 in just 2.6 seconds. The quarter mile falls in 10.6 seconds at 130 miles per hour. Dry weight for the coupe stays under 3,500 pounds, keeping the power-to-weight ratio in territory usually reserved for 6-figure supercars. Aerodynamics and packaging work in concert with the LT6's output. The low deck height and compact block, 16% lighter than the LT2, allow for a sleeker body and more aggressive down force. 5 radiators, including dedicated units for oil and transmission, are tucked into the chassis to handle the thermal load of 670 horses running at full tilt. The Z06-Z07 package adds carbon ceramic brakes and track-focused aero, sharpening its intent. This is not a grand tourer with sporting pretensions. It is a car designed to live at the limit, lap after lap, with a soundtrack that could be mistaken for Le Mans. Professional testers wasted no time putting these claims to the test. At Virginia International Raceway, the Z06 clocked a 2 minutes 41.9 seconds lap, faster than a McLaren 720S and quicker than a Porsche 911 GT3. Chevrolet's own Nürburgring runs, shrouded in secrecy but whispered to be under 7 minutes, fueled the legend. Every headline, every spec sheet, every launch video pointed to one thing: the Z06 was not just a new Corvette. It was the future of American performance, distilled into a single, roaring, high-strung machine. Expectations soared. For a moment, it felt like nothing could stand in its way. Lap after lap, the Corvette Z06 began to rewrite the leaderboard. When MotorTrend strapped their data loggers to the car at Virginia International Raceway, the stopwatch told a story that spread like wildfire. 2 minutes and 41.9 seconds, quicker than a McLaren 720S, faster than a Porsche 911 GT3. Numbers like that did not just raise eyebrows, they drew a line in the sand. Car and Driver called it a supercar slayer. Road and Track ran a headline saying Ferrari baiting, and forums buzzed with speculation about what the Z06 could do in the hands of an everyday driver. The Z06 did not just show up at the world's most demanding tracks, it left proof. At the Nürburgring, Chevrolet's own test drivers lapped in secret, cloaked in camouflage, but rumors swirled of a sub-7-minute run. No official time was published, but insiders whispered the number, and the legend grew. Meanwhile, at independent events across the country, the Z06 was clocked at local circuits, often besting records set by cars costing twice as much. At Willow Springs, a production Z06 circled the big track in 1 minute 22.6 seconds, outpacing the Ford GT and matching the best from Italy. Every major automotive outlet weighed in. Haggerty praised the Z06's unreal grip and relentless acceleration, calling it a track weapon disguised as a street car. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature on America's new answer to Europe's best. Doug DeMuro, known for his skeptical takes, called the Z06 the most exciting car GM has built in decades. Even Top Gear, famous for its British bias, admitted the Corvette had finally cracked the code. In press garages and comparison tests, the Z06 did not just keep up, it often led the pack. Quarter-mile times of 10.6 seconds at 130 miles per hour put it squarely in the territory of McLaren, Lamborghini, and Porsche. On the skid pad, it pulled 1.2 2G, outsticking cars with racing slicks and rear wings the size of picnic tables. Braking from 60 miles per hour took just 94 feet, a distance usually reserved for purebred race cars. The data did not exist in a vacuum. Every magazine, every YouTube review, every social media post added fuel to the fire. Owners put down deposits sight unseen, trusting that the numbers would hold up in the real world. Dealers reported waitlists stretching into the hundreds. Chevrolet's marketing leaned into the hype, calling the Z06 the most track-capable Corvette ever. But the most powerful validation came from the stopwatch. In a world where every performance claim is scrutinized, the Z06 delivered, again and again, on the promise of American engineering going toe-to-toe with the world's best. The message was clear. This car was not just a bold experiment. It was a new benchmark, a halo for the Corvette nameplate, and a challenge to everything that had come before. Expectations soared even higher, and for a brief moment the future looked unstoppable. Across the country, owners started sharing their data. Track sessions were no longer just about lap times or tire wear, they became a test of endurance for the Z06's cooling system. On forums such as Corvette Forum and Reddit, drivers posted telemetry logs and CSV files, plotting oil and coolant temperatures against lap counts. The numbers told a story that no press release could spin. One owner, known online as Track Z06 Owner, logged 25 track days in a single season. His CSV files showed a pattern. On days with ambient temperatures between 70 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit, oil temperatures would climb from 220 degrees Fahrenheit at startup to 280 degrees Fahrenheit or higher within 8 laps. Coolant temperatures followed, peaking at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. After 10 or 12 minutes of hard driving, the car's ECU would intervene. Power dropped, sometimes by half, as the system triggered limp mode to protect the engine. Each session ended with a forced cool-down, sometimes lasting longer than the driving itself. The pattern was not isolated. Dozens of owners reported similar results, especially at tracks such as Virginia International Raceway, Laguna Seca, and Willow Springs. One post included a performance data recorder video showing that after 7 laps at Sonoma Raceway, the Z06 displayed the warning reduced engine power. Oil temperature had hit 295 degrees Fahrenheit, and the car immediately cut output. The driver's telemetry exported for all to see showed intake air temperatures spiking above 200 degrees Fahrenheit, even with fans at full speed. In some cases, transmission fluid crept past 260 degrees Fahrenheit, adding another layer of risk. Owners dissected the data, searching for common threads. Automatic models, with their closer gear ratios, seemed especially prone to early limp mode. Some drivers tried cool-down laps, easing off the throttle for a circuit or two, but results were inconsistent. Others experimented with removing grille blocks or adding aftermarket cooling ducts, but the core pattern remained. Sustained high RPM track use, especially in warm weather, pushed the LT6 beyond its comfort zone. A few outliers managed 20 or more laps without issue, usually by running in cooler conditions or building in longer cool-down intervals. But for the majority, the telemetry showed a clear ceiling. Oil temperatures above 280 degrees Fahrenheit, coolant over 250 degrees Fahrenheit, and intake air creeping up, these were the red flags. The car's sensors caught them every time. Diagnostic trouble codes appeared, including P0128 for thermostat performance and generic torque reduction flags. Service technicians reviewing the data confirmed what owners already knew. The Z06 was fast, but not invincible. The sheer volume of data, lap after lap, session after session, built a composite picture. The Z06's ambition was undeniable, but so were the limits. Owners were not just chasing lap records, they were documenting a measurable pattern of thermal stress and electronic intervention. Each spreadsheet and each shared CSV became a piece of evidence in a growing archive. The question was no longer whether the problem existed, but why it kept showing up in car after car, regardless of driver or track. The numbers demanded answers that marketing could not provide. It started with a single video, just over 8 minutes of raw, unfiltered track footage. The clip showed a brand new Z06 storming down the front straight at Virginia International Raceway, the flat plane crank V8 revving past 8,000 RPM. But halfway through lap 8, the tone shifted. The dashboard flashed a warning that read, "Reduced engine power." The car slowed, the driver's voice cracked with disbelief, and the lap timer stopped cold. Within days, the video had crossed 1 million views on YouTube. The comment section exploded, with hundreds of replies dissecting every frame, every temperature spike, every audible sigh from the driver. It wasn't just a viral hit. It was gasoline on a smoldering debate. Screenshots spread across Reddit and Corvette forum like wildfire. In less than 72 hours, more than 50 new threads sprang up, each one pulling in dozens, then hundreds of replies. Some users posted their own performance data recorder logs, overlaying oil temperatures and RPM readings with red arrows and angry captions. Others shared dealer correspondence, warranty fine print, or side-by-side comparisons with European rivals. Forum moderators struggled to keep up, merging duplicate threads and pinning mega discussions that ballooned past 1,000 posts in days. Arguments broke out in every corner of the community. Longtime owners defended the car, blaming driver error or extreme conditions. Track day regulars countered with telemetry, pointing to the same overheating cutoffs, the same limp mode triggers, the same pattern repeating no matter the driver or the weather. A handful of users started spreadsheets, collecting data points from every post. Lap count, ambient temperature, oil and coolant numbers, transmission type, and whether the car was stock or modified. The crowdsourced database grew by the hour. Some threads turned combative, with accusations of exaggeration, sabotage, or brand loyalty clouding the discussion. Others took a more analytical approach, pooling resources to try aftermarket cooling solutions or proposing new test protocols. The sheer volume of evidence and the passion behind every post made the controversy impossible to ignore. Social media accounts fanned the flames. Automotive influencers posted reaction videos, racking up hundreds of thousands of views with titles like Z6 overheating, Is Chevy in trouble, or Track Day disaster. Instagram Reels and TikToks condensed the story into 60-second bursts, each one reaching new audiences and sparking fresh debates. Even mainstream outlets joined in. Headlines shifted from supercar slayer to track trouble, and every new owner report was treated like a breaking news alert. The numbers told their own story. By the end of the first month, the original video had topped 1.5 million views. Forum threads on the topic passed 10,000 posts combined. Polls showed that more than 15% of Z06 owners reported some form of thermal intervention during track use. The collective voice of the community, amplified by algorithms, hashtags, and relentless engagement, forced the issue into the open. Chevrolet's silence became a talking point of its own, with speculation running wild about what the company knew, when they knew it, and how they would respond. What began as a technical debate among enthusiasts had become a flashpoint for the entire performance car world. The Z06, once a symbol of American engineering ambition, now stood at the center of a digital firestorm. The stakes had shifted. This was no longer just about lap times or horsepower figures. It was about trust and transparency and the power of an online community that refused to let the story fade away. Inside the Corvette Z06, heat is both a byproduct of ambition and a constant adversary. The LT6 engine, with a flat plane crank and a V8 configuration, spinning at 8,600 revolutions per minute, pumps out more than just horsepower. Every combustion event adds to a growing reservoir of thermal energy. Nowhere is this more evident than in the engine bay, where temperatures in the header zone routinely exceed 400 degrees Fahrenheit during sustained track use. Exhaust runners snake just inches from vital components, radiating heat into a space already crowded by the mid-engine layout. The compact block, a marvel of packaging, leaves little room for air to circulate. Even with a dry sump oil system scavenging from 6 separate bays, the oil itself becomes a heat sink, absorbing energy faster than the rear-mounted cooler can shed it during repeated high RPM laps. Air flow is the lifeblood of any cooling system, but in the Z06 it faces a labyrinth. Front radiators, 5 in total, draw air through narrow ducts beneath the sharply angled nose. These radiators handle not just engine coolant, but also dedicated flows for the transmission and engine oil. The main radiators are flanked by secondary units, each with its own job. One for the transaxle, another for the differential, a third for the oil. Yet the mid-engine configuration forces these heat exchangers to work with limited frontal area. Air enters through the front grille, but as it passes through the radiators, it is already picking up heat, leaving less capacity for downstream components. Ductwork channels what is left toward the rear, but every bend and narrowing saps velocity and efficiency. Thermal imaging from independent tests paints a vivid picture. After just a handful of laps at race pace, the entire engine bay glows in shades of orange and white. The headers clustered tightly behind the firewall act as radiating elements, their surfaces climbing past 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Intake air temperatures, meant to stay cool for optimal combustion, begin to rise as underhood heat soaks through the composite plenum and airboxes. Sensors, embedded throughout the system, measuring oil, coolant, and intake temperatures, feed data to the engine control unit. When any of these cross predetermined thresholds, software steps in to reduce power, hoping to prevent lasting damage. The Z06 cooling fans, upgraded over the base Stingray, run at maximum duty cycle during track sessions. But even at full blast, they can only move so much air through the radiators before recirculating hot air trapped inside the bay. The rear ducts, styled for aerodynamic efficiency, struggle to evacuate heat quickly enough once the cabin and engine bay reach equilibrium. Mechanical lifters, titanium rods, and sodium-filled valves, all designed for durability, still rely on a stable thermal environment to function at the edge. As oil temperatures climb past 280 degrees Fahrenheit and coolant approaches 250 degrees Fahrenheit, the system safety margins shrink. Every component in the chain has a role. Radiators dissipate, ducts direct, fans push, sensors monitor. But the physical constraints of the Z06 architecture, engine placement, packaging density, and limited frontal area establish hard boundaries. Lap after lap, heat accumulates in predictable zones: the headers, the oil cooler, the plenum, and the intake tract. When the system is pushed beyond its design intent, especially in warm weather or during extended sessions, these bottlenecks define the car's real-world limits. The result is not a single failure point, but a cascade. As one area saturates, the rest follow, culminating in the now familiar warning chime and a sudden drop in power. The anatomy of the Z06 heat path is not just a technical curiosity, it is the root cause behind every limp mode, every frustrated owner, and every debate about what the car was truly built to handle. Inside GM's engineering offices, the Z06's validation program ran with the precision of a risk-averse machine. Calibration engineers, drawing on years of lessons from previous Corvettes, built a test regimen that looked rigorous on paper. Nürburgring laps in cool European air, 20-minute stints at Milford Proving Ground, and dyno heat-soak cycles pushed oil and coolant to the edge. Dozens of sensors, buried in every critical spot, streamed data to the ECU. If oil temperatures crept past 280 degrees Fahrenheit or coolant ticked above 250 degrees Fahrenheit, the ECU would quietly pull timing, cut fuel, or trigger torque reduction. These thresholds were not arbitrary. They came from a matrix of durability targets, emissions rules, and warranty cost projections. The aim was to keep the LT6 alive without sacrificing performance or exposing GM to catastrophic failures. But the test tracks and the real world rarely align. GM's validation stints, capped at 20 minutes, mirrored European supercar protocols, short aggressive bursts, not marathons. In these windows, the Z06's cooling system could keep up. Radiators, fans, and oil coolers moved heat away just fast enough to avoid tripping the ECU's intervention. Professional drivers, trained to manage pace and cool-down laps, kept the numbers in check. Ambient conditions were closely monitored. Validation runs rarely strayed into the 90-degree heat that owners would face at summer track days in Texas or California. Owners, though, were not bound by engineering scripts. Track day sessions often stretched beyond 20 minutes, especially at popular high-performance driving events. Temperatures soared, and cool-down laps, if they happened, were often skipped in the rush of adrenaline. The Z06 sensors did not care about intent. Once oil or coolant crossed their preset limits, the ECU's logic was absolute: torque reduction, limp mode, and a forced return to the paddock. Owners poring over their logs saw a pattern. The car was fast, but only as long as it stayed within the validation envelope GM had drawn. The disconnect ran deeper than stint length or weather. Calibration engineers faced hard choices about where to set intervention points. Raising thresholds could allow longer track sessions, but risked accelerated wear, warranty claims, or catastrophic failures. Setting them lower protected the engine, especially in a high-revving, flat plane design with tight tolerances, but guaranteed some owners would hit limp mode before their tires or brakes faded. The logic was clear. The Z06 would always protect itself first, even if that meant disappointing drivers who expected endless hot laps. Endurance test data from validation showed that, Under controlled conditions, the LT6 could run at the edge of its thermal envelope for a pro driver's stint. But the real world introduced variables the lab could not fully simulate. Tire choice, aftermarket modifications, inconsistent cooldowns, and local track layouts all pushed the car past its safe zone. When numbers climbed, oil at 290 degrees Fahrenheit, coolant at 255 degrees Fahrenheit, the sensors did their job. Diagnostic trouble codes like P0128 and torque reduction flags populated the logs, confirming the system was working as designed, even if it left owners frustrated. The result was a procedural gap, a space between what GM tested for and what owners demanded. The Z06's limp mode, governed by hard-coded ECU logic, was never meant as punishment. It was a safeguard, a last defense against failures that would cost far more than a ruined track day. As debates raged online, the difference between validation and reality became a question of expectations, and how far engineering could stretch in pursuit of performance without crossing into unreliability. Chevrolet's official line on the Z06 left little room for doubt. From the first press release, the car was described as the most track-capable Corvette ever. Brochures promised a machine engineered for the circuit, celebrating its endurance and speed. Yet, buried in the fine print, the story grew more complicated. The owner's manual spelled out boundaries the ads never mentioned. Track use was permitted within reason. Warranty coverage, the legal backbone of any performance claim, came with its own set of rules. The standard 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty applied, but exclusions were clear. Damage caused by competitive driving, racing events, and abuse would not be covered. The definition of abuse, however, was left open to interpretation. Public statements from General Motors walked a careful line. In 2022, a spokesperson told media outlets, "The Z06 is designed for track use within its operating limits." That phrase, "within its operating limits," became a subtle refrain. Nowhere in the marketing did Chevrolet specify what those limits were. Owners searching for clarity found a patchwork of policy language. Warranty booklets made clear that modifications, aftermarket parts, or evidence of racing could void coverage. But track day use, when done with a stock vehicle, was not explicitly forbidden. Instead, claims would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, often requiring logs, data, or even video proof of the incident. This gap between promise and policy created a gray zone. The Z06 was sold as a track weapon, but the legal documents retained the right to deny claims if the car failed under extreme conditions. Dealers, caught in the middle, relied on diagnostic codes and service logs to determine eligibility. Owners who experienced limp mode or overheating during sanctioned track events sometimes found themselves facing a review process rather than a guarantee. In some cases, Chevrolet offered goodwill repairs or software flashes. In others, claims were denied, citing evidence of misuse or operating outside design parameters. The language of the warranty and the language of the marketing campaign rarely matched. Phrases like track proven and endurance bred met reality in the exclusions and footnotes of the official documentation. For every bold claim on a billboard, a clause in the manual waited in the background, ready to draw a line between what was advertised and what was actually protected. In this space, the Z06's reputation was not just shaped by what it could do, but by what the company was willing to stand behind when the stopwatch stopped and the warning lights came on. Inside dealership service bays, the Z06 overheating issue became a battleground. Owners arrived after limp mode shutdowns, clutching printouts and data logs, while service advisors dissected performance data, recorder footage, and temperature readings. Warranty teams sifted through evidence, searching for any sign of operating outside design parameters or competitive use to justify a denial. Some owners, prepared with lap-by-lap charts and detailed notes, pressed for coverage. Others faced a wall of corporate policy, their claims dismissed with a few lines of fine print. A case in 2023 at Virginia International Raceway set an early precedent. After repeated limp mode episodes and a cracked radiator, the owner's warranty claim was denied for track racing. The dispute escalated to Better Business Bureau arbitration, where the owner presented logs and social media posts. Chevrolet eventually authorized a retrofit, but only after weeks of negotiation and mounting public attention. At Laguna Seca, another owner's claim was denied for misuse after just a few laps, only to be reversed following a surge of discussion on Corvette forums and automotive news outlets. In both cases, transparency and persistence forced the issue into the open. By 2025, these stories had multiplied. A class action lawsuit gathered over 500 plaintiffs, each alleging that the Z06 cooling system failed to deliver on Chevrolet's track-ready promises. Legal filings cited owner logs, expert testimony, and even Chevrolet's own marketing language. General Motors' legal team responded with claims of owner error, modifications, and non-standard usage. The case remained unresolved, but the pressure on dealers and the manufacturer intensified. Every denied claim risked becoming the next viral headline. History lingered over every decision. The C706's overheating problems had prompted a 2020 special coverage bulletin, extended warranties, and free radiator upgrades. Owners of the new Z06 pointed to that precedent, demanding equal treatment. But with no C8-specific bulletin as of 2025, each claim became a test of policy and precedent. Some owners received goodwill repairs or software updates, while others left empty-handed, fueling the next wave of outrage and legal action. The Z06's reputation now hinged as much on paperwork and arguments as on lap times. Today, General Motors still markets the Z06 as track-ready, yet real-world overheating reports persist, and no definitive factory fix exists as of 2025. For owners and engineers alike, ambition now collides with expectation in full public view. The future of American performance cars hinges not just on horsepower, but on trust. Sometimes what defines an icon is not its promise. It is how it survives the pressure. What do you think the next move should be? Share your thoughts below.